Ian Lees-Galloway.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. That was an unenthusiastic contribution from the chair of the Health Select Committee. And I have to say this is an unusual bill, an unusual government bill, in that it was introduced by the government. But the real impetus, the real enthusiasm for this bill has come from the opposition. Right back on the 18th of February 2013, when the government first decided that it was going to pursue this course of action of introducing plain packaging for tobacco products. That, of course, was a decision not of a National Party minister. Certainly would never have been a decision of a National Party minister. It was a decision of the Honourable Tariana Turia. And of course, really, if we're honest about this, the only reason that government introduced this legislation is because of its agreement with the Māori Party. And boy, oh boy, has that government dragged the chain on this legislation and taken every single possible opportunity to slow the process down. So more than 3 years after the government first decided it was going to introduce plain packaging, here we are, not passing the bill, not passing it into law, not actually beginning the regime of plain packaging, but here we are at second reading. My goodness, what progress we have made in the last 3 years. And of course, we all know why. We all know why, and that's because this government always prioritises business interests over the interests of the health of New Zealanders. And it was concerned that its business buddies were going to sort of give it in the neck for actually doing something that the tobacco companies didn't like. Now, if I have to say, of course, all of this is tied up in the business of the Trans-Pacific Partnership and free trade and investor-state dispute clauses, and the threat that the tobacco company continues to make that it will try to sue the New Zealand government if this Parliament enacts legislation designed to protect the health of New Zealanders. And I have to say, if I was an exponent of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which I'm certainly not, but if I was someone who was a backer of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, if I was someone who was an enthusiast for investor-state dispute settlement clauses, I would be really hacked off with the tobacco industry right now, because the tobacco industry, with its threat to sue the New Zealand government if this legislation is passed, is actually playing into all the fears people have about what will happen to this country if we sign up to the Trans-Pacific Partnership and if we pass the legislation enabling the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Because the tobacco industry, the minister looks confused. The minister is trying to figure out how this is associated with this bill. He doesn't do his reading if he doesn't understand it. This legislation, if it passes, will trigger the tobacco industry suing the New Zealand government under investor-state dispute settlement clauses. And that's what people fear. This Parliament not having the sovereign right to legislate in the interest of the public health of New Zealanders, because we fear being sued by the tobacco industry or by any other industry for that matter. So, sorry? No. So this legislation, though, Sam, legislation, Sam Lotoainga, Associate Minister for Health, this legislation, the tobacco industry is threatening to sue the New Zealand government if this legislation is passed. And I'm sure the tobacco industry will sue the New Zealand government if this legislation is passed. And that is why the government has said it has wanted to put this legislation on the back burner, because they're more concerned about the business interests, they're more concerned about the tobacco lobby than they are about the public health of New Zealanders and the wants, and they're more interested in the lobbying from the tobacco industry than they are from the lobbying from people who are interested in the health of ordinary New Zealanders. Now, Simon O'Connor said this isn't going to be a silver bullet and and in his view, lots of people out there thought that this was going to be the silver bullet. I don't think anybody thinks this is going to be the silver bullet. Nobody came to select committee and told us this was going to be the silver bullet. What this is the next logical progression in a long line of things that this Parliament and governments have done over the last 3 decades nearly now to steadily eradicate the prevalence of tobacco smoking and the harm that tobacco does to New Zealanders. So we got rid of advertising, we got rid of sports sponsorships, we got it out of workplaces, we got it out of pubs and cafes, all of that opposed by the National Party, by the way. Every single one of those steps was opposed by the National Party. And it wasn't until the National Party formed an agreement with the Māori Party that they actually started to agree with these types of steps. So I can see perhaps why some National MPs are confused. They think this is the silver bullet because they've only just realised that they should be on the right side of this debate and actually start supporting legislation that reduces the harm caused by tobacco. So of course it's not the silver bullet. It is just the next logical step. And this Parliament and governments have been on this pathway for a long time. It's great that the National Party has finally caught up. We're all actually quite pleased about that. And it's a shame, really, that we haven't been able to advance this cause more quickly over the last 20 to 30 years because of the opposition that the National Party has put up at every step. Where Labour-led governments and Labour, in parliaments where Labour has had the majority, have sought to legislate in that direction. So this is an important step, and what it actually does is gets rid of the last bastion of tobacco advertising. So this has actually been a process which has taken quite a long time. We got rid of what everybody would think of as tobacco advertising a long time ago. We got rid of that insidious, horrible ability that tobacco had to sponsor sports events, which is just crazy because sport is all about health and there could be nothing more that is detrimental to the health of New Zealanders than tobacco. So those two should never have gone together. But then, of course, we had the tobacco displays where tobacco companies could use the packaging on cigarette packets as a wall of advertising in dairies and supermarkets. We managed to get rid of those, but of course that doesn't get rid of the fact that actually every time a cigarette packet is put out on the kitchen table where kids can see it, that is a form of advertising as well. And we do need to get rid of this, and we can actually use those cigarette packets to deliver the messages that we actually need young people to see, which is that smoking isn't cool, the packaging looks disgusting, it's not the sort of thing that you want to show around in front of your friends, and in fact we've got the messages on there describing to young people exactly what the consequences of smoking tobacco are. And over the years it's all been successful. Yeah, we've heard from the National Party over the years, we still hear from the ACT Party, we still hear from others that none of these things is going to be successful, none of it is going to make any difference. But the truth is we have seen dramatic falls in the number of people who smoke. We've seen dramatic improvements in people's health, but we've still got some way to go. There's still significant, much smaller, a minority of the population smokes, but it's still a significant proportion of New Zealanders who smoke, and they're not only doing damage to themselves, but they're putting unnecessary burden on the health system, all so that the tobacco companies can make a profit. So this is the next step as we head towards being smoke-free by 2025. But it is going to require a continued and sustained effort from this government and from the governments that come after it. We had a period of a succession of moves to tackle tobacco. We had getting rid of the tobacco displays, we had increases in tax, and that was great while Tariana Turia was the minister. Sadly, since Tariana Turia has left and we've had a diminished Māori Party and a minister who doesn't seem to show as much enthusiasm for this as his predecessor did, then the wind has gone out of the sails a little bit, and it's been a long time whilst this bill has sat on the order paper, and a long time since we've actually done anything to maintain that momentum and keep the pressure on the tobacco industry. So this is the next step. I hope that we don't have as long between the second reading and the third reading as we had between the first and the second, because we do need to get on with this. We do need to keep the momentum up, and just because the the government doesn't have a minister who has the enthusiasm that there once existed within that government, doesn't mean we can't keep the pressure on and keep doing this. Come on, let's get this thing through as quickly as we can.
Barbara Courage.